What's up, y'all? This is Jonathan Lippy, Beyond the Harmony, beyondtheharmony.com. Today we are reviewing Bone Thugs-n-Harmony T.H.U.G.S. And note, I said it because we were reviewing Bone Thugs-n-Harmony T.H.U.G.S, not Flesh and Bone T.H.U.G.S. How did this happen? Is it that Ruthless was like mad all those years that Def Jam got to release an album with the Thugs acronym and Ruthless didn't, and they just were like, well, we're going to do it now. If Bone's leaving the label, we're going to get that T.H.U.G.S album titled one way or the other. They didn't even like spell out the acronym for what it is. Whereas the Flesh and Bone cover, it's written real small, but it's there. But yes, there are two albums in the Bone universe with the same exact album title. Additionally, I am amazed and impressed that search engines are able to differentiate between the name of the group and the name of this album. If you type in Bone Thugs-n-Harmony T.H.U.G.S, you actually get this album. I thought every time I type it in, I'm like, man, am I going to have to filter through a bunch of stuff to find it? No, somehow it knows. And even though we're not reviewing Flesh's album, I remember a long time ago, somebody asked me if the Fleshbone album was titled Hollywood, Cleveland, New York. Because, you know, if you look at this cover here, you barely could see T.H.U.G.S, and it's almost impossible to see True's Humbly United Gathering Souls. Whereas Hollywood, Cleveland, New York are placed where usually the album title would be placed. For Def Jam to have put out that album cover, especially with a purple Death Star over Flesh's right shoulder, and the consistent huge Fleshbone head, I guess as an ode to the Creeping on a Come-Up cover. I don't know, but what a strange cover for Def Jam to release. And I say that because I took a course in creative writing in college, and they said to us, always have a professional company produce your book cover because there's some kind of like secret message when these specific industry level book covers do your cover, whereas if you do it yourself, you hurt your sales. I don't know what the secret is, but there's a secret there. And that Fleshbone cover does not look like it fits the standard, whereas take a look at how well formatted the Bone Thugs-n-Harmony T.H.U.G.S cover is. Although what I object to with the T.H.U.G.S cover is the same thing I object to with the BT&H Resurrection cover. It just feels empty. You know, something empty is there. For both BT&H Resurrection and T.H.U.G.S, had they put the Bone members on the cover, I think the albums would have done much better. You know, many people say that Bone Collection Volume 2 album cover should have been BT&H Resurrection cover and vice versa. So here we are with two album covers, no Bone members on the front. You're just like, why? Now, this review, well, first off, all my reviews, they're not really to just simply review an album. It's to take your mindset back to a time period. And surrounding this, I'm just coming out of the warehouse where I didn't have a chance to really keep up with Bone. Out of nowhere, this Thug Stories album is there, and I'm not even sure if Strength and Loyalty came out yet. But this comes out. I remember Albert brought it to my house. You guys might see Albert in the comments over the years, but he's been my homie since first grade, and we were Bone fans together. And he brought this over to the crib, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, is this a real? There was like a lot of like mixtapes. See, at this stage of Bone, remember, I thought they packed it in. You know, before Strength and Loyalty, I thought they did Thug World Order, and then, you know, Bizzy was off doing whatever the heck, and then Lazy, Crazy, and Wish. You know, it seemed like Crazy was having a successful solo career with, you know, Riding Dirty, and he did Spit Your Game, and earlier he had I Don't Give a F with Little John. You know, I didn't understand what the heck the Bone for Life album was. It was like was it an EP? I didn't know what to think of it, but when that Bone for Life came out, it also had that reality show where they were all, you know, publicly beefing with Bizzy all over the speakerphone. So I didn't know what the heck was going on with Bone at this point. I just liked the songs. Oh, and they came out with their greatest hits. So as I always say, when you come out with the greatest hits, that's like, all right, we packed it in. That's the end, right? for the greatest hits, and then you could have a best of. Greatest hits, best of. That's where I thought it was at. So then this comes out, and if I didn't already thought it was packed in, this was by Ruthless Records, executive produced by Tamika Wright, and I'm just like, well, damn. You know what this is? This is the posthumous Tupac album, okay? And I'll explain why. If you guys were Tupac fans, I hope some of you were, so you'll understand this reference. But when Tupac, in quotes, died, after Machiavelli, the Don Illuminati came out, there was Machiavelli 2 through 17. Okay? I don't know if you... Machiavelli 2 through... There was 16 Machiavelli bootleg albums. And I had all of them. And I picked out the songs that I liked, and I played those songs a lot. From, whenever 96 he dies until I think the last Tupac posthumous album came out in was it 2006? So there was 10 years. 10 years of Tupac unreleased albums after he died. So, and the problem, okay, this is why I say this, and I think a lot of you are going to remember this. The problem with the Tupac posthumous albums, that means the albums after he died, was that the versions that we enjoyed off of the Machiavelli 2 through 17, the instrumentals all got changed on the retail releases classified under Tupac. It was no longer Machiavelli, it was Tupac. And they changed the beats. So the OG beats of the Tupac songs got modified to be more current with the time period of the style of beat. And that ruined a lot of these Tupac songs for us. Even though it's hey, it's a Tupac album. You felt like it was artificial. You felt like it's like, this ain't really what Pac wanted it. He wanted it like the Machiavellis. So that was always an issue amongst Tupac fans of man, this just feels like a Machiavelli remix album. And so here we are with T.H.U.G.S. And if you had this album and you had been downloading all the unreleased Bone songs, you'll know what the heck I'm talking about. Because this took a lot of unreleased Bone songs, re-engineered them with different instrumentals. And so this has always been I don't think it's just me. I think a lot of people are like, how do we classify this? And it's the strangest thing, because think about this. People will put Bone for Life when they do Bone discographies. They're gonna say, Resurrection, Thug World Order, right? And then after that, it's like, well, what's next? Is it Bone for Life? Okay, Thug Stories, Strength and Loyalty. You never see T.H.U.G.S. listed. You might even see some versions that say, oh yeah, the greatest hits counts. Or the Bone Collection 1 and 2 count. But then they omit T.H.U.G.S. But I'll even see people count Bone Brothers as a Bone album before they count T.H.U.G.S. And it's crazy. T.H.U.G.S. is a 13-track Bone Thugs and Harmony album. Straight up. 13 songs, full group songs with 4 members. That tells me I'm not the only one that has issue with this album. And now the sad part is, if you didn't know any of this, and I think that's the people that enjoy this, is the newer Bone fans that came along since Resurrection or since Thug World Order. They thought this was like a real deal Bone album. I remember seeing people like, oh wow, I got that new Bone T.H.U.G.S. album. Like it was an album. Like Bone got together to record this and say, yeah, this is our final product. And they were happy with this. And in that perspective, this album is actually a good album. That's the funniest thing about it. The people that don't like this are the people that know what it is. The people that don't know what it is, they're really satisfied. And here's why. Because they are most likely not from the creeping Eternal era. They were probably the fans that came after. Like I always say, BTNH Resurrection brought in a lot of new fans. Later on, Strength and Loyalty brought in a lot of new fans. And they had a totally different perspective of what they wanted versus the early Bone fans. The early Bone fans never get the lip service that we want. Every other Bone fan gets what they want all the time. By the way, I got this used. I bought this whole big package of CDs. I would never treat my stuff like this. This is horrible. So this is basically a bunch of unreleased Bone songs remixed. I'm assuming most of these are from the Thug World Order era. Some say these were cuts from Thug Stories, but I always thought Thug Stories was cuts from Strength and Loyalty. I don't know. But a lot of the songs on here sound like it's from the Thug World Order era. You know, there's nothing on here where I was like, this. Let me just backtrack. The fans that didn't know, they're the ones that would list T.H.U.G.S as a Bone album. And I just think, man, it must be so nice being these people. Because for them, it's like, wow, a new Bone Thugs-n-Harmony album. How nice of Ruthless. I don't even remember how I ended up getting all of the unreleased songs. Because I don't know how I had time to be on the Bone boards from the years 2003 to 2007. But somehow when this T.H.U.G.S album came out, I think I had heard every single song by the time this became available. And that's one of the bad parts about being active on the Bone boards is you get all this unreleased material, so you could never really be surprised. It's all post Bone. And I know this. I'm not even reviewing the songs. I'm reviewing the era around this. This is the weirdest time, not just for Bone, but this is a period of time in music where the MP3 is out and the ringtone is out, and the music industry didn't know yet how to adjust to what was going on. A lot of rappers stopped rapping. Different eras. It was like the down south era of rap. So Ruthless very cleverly dropped this album on the eve of Strength and Loyalty dropping. Great move on their part. The sad part, after all that I said just now, it sounds like I'm knocking this album. But as I said, those that didn't know, if you just took this for what it is without knowing anything behind it, it's a decent album. And I've been thinking about this the past couple weeks. I've been thinking if I could have one album of the albums that I reviewed, and those albums being this album, T.H.U.G.S, or Bizzy Bone Speaking in Tongues, Bizzy Bone, what was the other one? Was it Back with the Thugs? I can't even remember the title of it. Or Lazy Bone, The New Revolution. I'd rather have this. And I think this sings to the whole idea of why Bone fans want Bone group albums. Even when it's subpar as a group album, it's still better than the solo albums. So let's go through it. The first track on there is called T.H.U.G.S. It's like an intro song. And the audio, the instrumental to it is iconic. It's not something that you want to always hear, but when it comes on, it gives you this like nostalgia. And you wonder like, well, where is this nostalgia even from? Because I don't really have a good memory associated with this. But I always feel like when I hear it, I feel like I'm watching an NBA like flashback to the Jordan era. Even though it doesn't sound like the NBA on NBC. It's not that song. But it just has, like, I feel like moving graphics are coming over. And I feel like montages are happening. Now, I'll say this. When I first got this, I don't know if Albert gave it to me or what. Because I know I had it, but I don't remember how I got it. Maybe I downloaded it. I don't know. But I remember when I heard the T.H.U.G.S intro, I thought to myself, because this, again, you got to keep the Tupac backdrop in it. I thought, oh, this is so cute. This is Bone all doing their Tupac best. Like they're all doing their own little speeches. It felt like an assignment that I had in school where it was like for speech class, like record your speech on how you would give a public speech. And so all four of them had their own little individualized speeches. One of them tried to sound like Martin. They had their own little speeches. I just thought it was cute.
And I believe that we must confront the past in order to capitalize
I wonder, like, it just sounded like they were role playing. Now, I know a lot of Bone fans took it like, no, this is real shit. And I know the Bone guys probably really meant it. To me, though, it just felt like acting. I thought it was cute. I wasn't knocking it. I enjoy that they even put like a chorus. Like, so they made it like a song, but they were giving speeches. They were giving speeches, and and you could tell that this must have, it probably was supposed to be the intro to Thug World Order, which was initially supposed to be called Independence Day. And when you hear it, you could think of that album cover. They're all at like a podium with their fists up. So it sounds like the song T.H.U.G.S should have been the intro to the Independence Day album. Cute song. I'm not knocking these guys. I just thought it was cute. So I'm going to give the T.H.U.G.S intro an 8.5. It's one of the best Bone intros on an album. It's not the best, but it's one of the best. All right, track 2, Unstoppable.
You niggas can't stop me. You motherfuckers can't stop me. In the cocktails for the gorillas on the block. For skinny niggas like myself, I tell them it shots as well.
This is probably one of the 2 standout tracks from this album. Perhaps the best song on this album. The hook was excellent. It has elements of that eternal feel with a resurrection sound. In fact, the hook is so good that I would think, you know, when Bone fans want that, hey, man, we want that eternal sound back, the hook itself is eternal worthy. I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say that. It's eternal worthy, the hook. If anything, Art of War worthy, right? The verses, though, as good as Crazy's verses killing it like he always did back then.
Nothing to say to a hater, as soon as he run up, I give him a pound. Put him in the power, the rest of them niggas who thought they can run up and fuck with me now.
But for whatever reason, there's something I just don't love about the verses. Like, the verses are on. The verses are all good. They're all great. They're not phenomenal.
Execution, murder, them all, kill them all, get your shit, nigga, get in the car.
Okay, so you got a phenomenal hook with great verses. Even Wish comes with it. Like, and it sounds like I'm saying 2 things simultaneous. I don't know if I'm saying it because I have a feeling you guys are thinking this too and just didn't know you were thinking it. Here's why I say that. I wish this song was on a major release, like whether it was Strength and Loyalty, Thug World Order, or Resurrection. I wish Unstoppable was on a major release so that it could be fully evaluated in proper context. Right now, it being on T.H.U.G.S, while it is an official retail release, let's face it, everybody treats this album like it's just some kind of fake turd. It's almost like this album is fake, even though it's official. It's officially released, but it's hardly acknowledged. In fact, the Lost Archives, Volume 1, is acknowledged way more than T.H.U.G.S, at least from my perspective, from my perception of witnessing things online. I never seen this album fully, like, it's embraced in this like funny way. Anyway, I've already talked about that enough, but Unstoppable as a song, the song is phenomenal for the hook. The verses are good to great, not eternal, unbelievable, perfect, but this song is so passable. This is a good song. This would even be a good single. Even in the way Unstoppable is, it would be a good single. I would say that they missed the vote releasing Young Thugs as a single. Had they released Unstoppable with a video, we would like this album a lot more. I think the lead single kind of threw a lot of people off, being Young Thugs, which we'll get to. Yeah, Unstoppable, one of the top 2 songs in this album. I'm ranking Unstoppable so high. I'm giving this a 9.25 to the point where I would have replaced a song on Thug World Order with Unstoppable. Like, I don't know how they cut this. This song is that good that it's worthy to be on an album. Is this your guys' favorite song? Top 2 favorite on this album? Let me know. Track 3, Nation of Thugs, which on the Lost Files, I think it's called No Love for the Law, and the hook sounds like it's saying no love for the law.
Got no love for the law, but I shed blood for my dog.
I don't know how it's Nation of Thugs, but there you go. Nation of Thugs, no love for the law. It's a memorable, repetitive chorus. hearing Crazy say it, you feel like you've heard it forever. It doesn't feel like it's just some throwaway unreleased song that wound up on this album. Even though it's not a song you want to hear all the time, and you don't even love the chorus, but it's a chorus that you feel it's always been there and you'll remember it forever.
Got no love for the law, but I shed blood for my dog.
The verses on the song sound formulaic. It sounds like they're just going through the motions.
I've been trying to gather my niggas for battle. We out of control, we can't be handled. We sick of police in the scandals, 24 magnums, busting at random.
Like, it's just like an album track. Like, oh, hey, another day in the office. We're just dropping. Like, dude, when I was in a group, we had songs like this where it's like you get home from school. It's like, all right, let's make a song. And you don't really have the dopest beat or the most inspiring beat, but you're like, well, it's what we got today. Let's record something. That's what it felt like. It was just like, hey, let's record today. No love for the law. Bizzy's verse, though, it at least sounded like he was experimenting.
I can't love shit as the full extent is given. I'm above these deceptions. I know their intentions. With spurs made by Smith and Wesson. Pulling me weapon.
It had that original Bone experimentation feel to it, whereas everybody else just sounded like, even like Wish's verse sounded like he walked away from the microphone at some point. But Bizzy's was experimental, and that's what, Bone fans, we love that experimentation, discovering like a new flow, a new style, a new energy. Everything else was formulaic, and it's just like, all right, but it has to be there. The song had to exist at some point for the hook. I give it a 7.5. I'll give it an 8. It's not horrible. It's just not thrilling. All right, track 4, Wildin.
You need some reefer, we smoking a bomb day. You need some liquor, we pouring it all day. Looking for drama, my niggas be wildin'.
This is the standout track from the album. As much as I said for Unstoppable, as far as commercial viability, I think this song Wildin had the most commercial viability for a radio single. I think if they put this out on the radio, they would have got some new Bone fans, at least in South Florida. This is like a South Florida in that time period, the kind of stuff that people wanted to hear down there. Tons of bass. The CMON CLETUS line by Lazy was hilarious, memorable. Bone came to play with this one, and it's a crossover track to other rap genres could have enjoyed. Why Wildin was not the lead single, I don't know. And mentally, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but I always find like these connections between songs. So Crept When We Came and Creeping on a Come Up, but also simultaneously, I always thought that East 99, Eternal, Crept When We Came, and Down 71 is really just one big long song. Like I combine all those together. I combine No Shorts, No Losses with Shots to the Double Glock. There's a lot of things I connect, and I connect Wildin with that song We Workin', We Workin', We Workin'.
When we rumble, we just like animals out the jungle, make them fall, collapse, stumble and fumble just like drunk hoes. You need some reefer, we smoking a bomb.
Missed the boat. Wildin would have been big. The tempo for it is something that appeals to a lot of people. It's more than just a rap song to non-rap fans. They could have got with this. For me and my taste, I'm giving Wildin, I want to give it a 10. I'm that insane with it, but I'm going to say 9.5, 10. I mean, to me, when I hear Wildin, I'm like, what else? What else does this need? But it seems insane. Like nobody wants to give Wildin the props just because it feels like it's an easy, it feels like a layup to do a fast tempo track, a party track, something like this. I used to play this all the time, bro. It's not a Bone style track, but dog, when you hear this one, and there's a couple other tracks, like We Workin', right? They enjoy this. We feel silly about liking this, right? But the effort, they were riding these tracks. They were loving it. You could feel the enthusiasm, the excitement. They wanted to do this one, just like We Workin'. I mean, I almost think they should test this out in a live performance. Like if this Wildin was on one of their major albums, this is a track that they could be performing at their live concerts. And if they had like a dead crowd that got tired from like all the slow Bone singing type tracks, if you need to hype the crowd right back up, just pop in the beginning. You want some reefer? You just start this track off and you'll get the whole entire audience fired up. How they've missed performing this live all these years, missed opportunity to wake the people up. This is a wake the crowd up track.
You need some liquor, we pouring it all day. Looking for drama, my niggas be wildin'.
And just like bottle service, I think there's a whole world that Bone didn't tap into that they could have. Fast tempo dance type tracks. The best song on this album is between Wildin and Unstoppable, right? So, I mean, by me saying that now, it's everything else is downhill from here, right? Let me know for you, what were your top two? Was it Unstoppable and Wildin? Those are my top two. All right, number 5, Not That N-Word.
I'm not that nigga to get caught up in rappers and bluffs. I'm not that nigga that's believing that you bitches is stuff.
What's interesting about this is, and this album, is that a lot of the instrumentals of this album remind me of stuff that you would have heard on like Ja Rule with J-Lo type beats, or Fat Joe with some R&B singer, or that whole area, the Ja Rule, the Fat Joe, the Busta Rhymes, all those rappers that were hitting at that time period, like Eve, all the it sounds like an instrumental that they would have used. And it's not just this song, there's a couple others on here. It's not something you expect to hear Bone on a Bone Thugs and Harmony album. This is a song you would picture Bone being featured on.
I'm not that nigga with this mind in the dark. If you don't love me, I don't love you. Let me lock up the heart.
But not like this instrumental doesn't feel like it should be a Bone Thugs and Harmony instrumental. And I used to see Bone fans say, hey, how come Bone never uses like the current style beats? They always just do their own kind of thing. Well, here you go. And it happens a couple of times on this album. And for the lack of enthusiasm for it, I often wonder, the stuff that Bone fans demand, when they finally get it, they're just like, nah, just kidding. And, Crazy was bringing it on this verse. Like, Crazy put a lot of effort into dropping his verse. He sounded thrilled to be here doing this topical type track. And I'm not saying it's a bad, this was the kind of popular sound of the time period. So I give him credit, for writing. And it's a song on a topic. And even Bizzy stayed on topic. Now, this topic has been done a gazillion times. When I was listening to it, I thought of L.O.Cool.J, I'm That Type of Guy, from the Walkin' with the Panther album. And I also thought of Juvenile's Ha, even though it might be in like the opposite side of it, but same concept to a song. And so there's nothing wrong with this song. They all showed up. It even sounded like they were happy to do it because they had a topic to write on. It's almost like it was a fun school assignment for them, or a fun work assignment. Like, hey guys, listen, we need you guys to come up with a song about how you are not that N-word. Now, with all that said, the vocals are mixed like ass. They're not mixed that good.
I'm not the nigga you thought that you was at. I'm not the nigga with balls, but acting faggot.
So they could have improved on how the vocals sound. But overall, thematic, it's kind of neat to have a song like this in the collection, although I could have sworn Crazy did a couple other songs like this. But whatever, it's an album track. It is what it is. It's not bad. I give it an 8. I'll say this, though. If they invented this, I would have given this like a 9.5. This topic has just been done many times over, so that by the time I heard this, I was just like, oh, you guys got one of these songs too, huh? So that's why it wasn't fresh. It wasn't new. It wasn't something I hadn't heard before. It was a topic that I've heard a gazillion times. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm taking off 1.5 points for that. Bone Thug Soldier. High tempo song. It's like a dance song. The vocals, once again, are mixed poorly. But they sounded like they tried. When it got to Lazy Bones verse, it just felt like he was just dropping F-bombs left and right and going through the motions. I'm good with the chorus, even though it's a chorus that's been done a gazillion times. Here's what it is. This song is passable due to the tempo that it has a mass appeal. Even to you as a Bone fan, you wouldn't want to say you like this song just due to everything about it. It doesn't feel like something that Bone would do. But now that they've done 2 of these type of songs back to back, you're almost like, well, is this the new Bone? And maybe this is why this album isn't really revered, is that, but at the same time, maybe we're wrong. It's like, hey, this is the Bone party album.
Take her from a 9mm, make your body rock, body drop, make the party stop. Leave them in the bushes, we them niggas making pushes.
And we just didn't, we found out that we didn't really want to, but we thought we wanted a Bone party album, but when you got it, and there's nothing wrong with it, you're like, maybe I don't want that. I don't know. I bet you non-rap fans would be good with this. They'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Not for me, but it is what it is. Track 7, I'm Bone. Now, the version on the Lost Files was mixed so much better than the version on the retail release. It sounds like they screwed down or slowed the speed down on Lazy Bone's verse, and it just sounds strangely mixed. Got me tipsy, sipping on Grey Goose, finna let loose cause I can. Fucking with people that's off in the crowd, nigga, you know me, I'm the man. But yeah, when I heard this version, I liked the version I heard when it was unreleased better. The fact that it's slowed down, they modified a good formula. I don't know why they did it. I liked the song the way it originally was. So this goes into that whole Tupac Machiavelli remix albums posthumously. I also wondered how this song would have performed on Thug World Order or one of the other albums when it came out. Because once again, it's one of those songs that since it's on this album, we're like, well, it's a cut song. We don't have to really evaluate it. It has cool elements to it. I love the high pitch bone on the chorus part. And for a different, like, because we're Bone fans, we're like, whatever. If this was a song for any other group, this would probably be one of your favorite tracks on another group's album, just not for Bone. Like that instrumental there was a popular instrumental that people would be using at the time. So I give it an 8, but it's almost like, how do you evaluate this? Because am I evaluating the song itself or the way it's engineered on T.H.U.G.S. versus how it is on some of the unreleased releases? Which also brings me to the concept of like the Bone Thugs and Harmony, the Lost Files. What are we supposed to make of that? As well as like some of those DJ Unique albums of Bone, Thuggish 2, and all these official looking, like Behind the Harmony. What do we think about that? What are we supposed to think about that? And I think there was an Everyday Thugs album. So anyway, track 8 is Sweet Jane. I'm so in love with you, Sweet Jane. Now, the replacement of the original instrumental makes the performance of the vocals almost not make sense because voices are not in key with the replacement instrumental. Whereas like the original, you could hear why they were performing in the tones that they were. But with this new instrumental, it's almost like it sounds like they're off key. But I'll give it this. This remix version has much better mastering, EQ levels, and bass, which is strange too. So some of these tracks are engineered, mixed, mastered better. And in other cases, they're done worse, which also makes this a strange album because you're like, and with all these different variants, you're like, which one do I... What do I do? You know what's pretty confusing is around this time, Crazy's Fix Tape Volume 1 comes out with a song called Sweet Jane. And it's a completely different song from this Sweet Jane. But we're talking, in the same year or two that both of these tracks are coming out. The bass on this version of the song is spectacular. I love the bass. I even love the little whistle thing they got going in it. There's a lot to like about this version, and there's a lot to like about the original version. Which is better? I don't know. If I could have the bass on the original and the engineering, I don't know. But I'll take this one. But it's like if you heard the original and you hear this one, you're like, man. So it's an 8, however you slice it. Track 9, Everyday Thugs. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thugs. Everyday Thugs. The first thing I thought of the first time I heard this song was the Crazy Bone Friday song that was on the Next Friday soundtrack. It was a similar chorus. So for me, when I hear things that are kind of recycled, I never like it, but it's a nice song. Sounds like those songs at the end of Thug World Order. Bizzy sounds like it was from another song.
You know, you don't like the echo, but no, you don't like the rolling, you know, you don't like the benzo, but oh.
Right, so I don't even know if Bizzy recorded his verse for this. It sounds like they dubbed him in. The performance on the Everyday Thugs album is my favorite. I had notes here that said the performance on Everyday Thugs album is my favorite, but it's mixed horribly. I think that related to the I'm Bone. Man, Everyday Thugs is on 3 different albums. It's on the album Everyday Thugs. It's on T.H.U.G.S. And it's on The Lost Files. And I suspect it might even be on another one too. It's easy listening bone. And it's funny because this song and a couple other songs, they all blend together in my head. And this was my thought at the time. It drove me nuts that these songs were appearing on multiple albums and they were engineered differently on each album. In my opinion, the way it's mixed, mastered, engineered on the Lost Files, it is so much better than it is on T.H.U.G.S. or the Everyday Thugs album. On T.H.U.G.S. and Everyday Thugs album, it's all bassy. It's not bright. On the Lost Files, it feels actually mastered and brightened, and the vocals are very clear, and it's a very clear recording. The other two, it's muffly and bassy. And so here you are thinking like, oh, good, I got the retail release by Ruthless. This should be the best possible mix of it. And turns out, nope. The best mix is on some strange, random The Lost Files. And, you know, at the time, people were always getting mad at, like, oh, that's not a real release. Well, okay. But nowadays it's saying like it's from Harmony House. The version on The Lost Files is the best mix of it. As far as the song, easy listening bone, you know, there's not much to say about it. It's just like a chilling song that when I hear it, I think about it being like 3:30 in the afternoon when you took a day off from school. Like you had a cold or whatever reason you skipped school that day. So your whole entire world is off track and you're outside around 3:30, around the time you'd be getting home, but you were home all day and the sun is beating on you and you just feel out of whack. Like that's what the song makes, but you're happy because you spent the whole day doing whatever it is you wanted to do. That's how the song makes me feel. All right, Don't Waste My Time.
I don't waste my time without no dollar sign. You ain't talking about no paper, would you stay out of mind?
Bizzy sounds like he recorded it the same time he recorded Money Money.
Gun in my coat, stiff in my grill, lane switching, fixing the skrill. Look at the perfect one, show you right, please be still.
And Bone Bone Bone. So if you like that version of Bizzy and you're like, man, I wish there was a little bit more of this, well, listen to Don't Waste My Time because it's all there. Crazy's good on the chorus. The subject matter, it feels like they've done this a gazillion times. I think of one of those Crazy Bones solo tracks where he was kind of giving the update on the group, how it feels about everybody. The resurrection. There's all kinds of different songs about what's going on with Bone. And I suppose that they should do these updates periodically. It's just how many. There's nothing wrong with the song. It's just not something that you want to hear all the time. But once it's on, you're kind of okay with it being on. You wouldn't put it on. Like I can't see myself saying, yeah, I want to put on Don't Waste My Time. But if it's playing in the background, I'm good with it. So it's another one of those 8s. Now we get to Young Thugs.
Young Thugs, my young thugs.
Young Thugs was the single. There was even a music video for it. And I remember the surprise at the time period that we saw Bizzy in the video because he wasn't going to be in any Strength and Loyalty videos. We didn't know what his status with the group was. So it was kind of amusing to see him have to do, I guess there was one final thing that to fulfill the Ruthless contract that he had to show up for a video. And the whole song itself just felt like, okay, well, we got to put this song out to get out of the contract or whatever it was to fulfill something. You couldn't figure out like when it was recorded. Bizzy in the video looked probably the most overweight than he ever has looked in any video. His haircut was really strange. His outfit was really strange. So it was a weird video. I'll give it this. The piano notes were nice. Like I like that there was pianos at the beginning. But some of the notes throughout the song clashed. I thought the notes clashed at the end of Wishbone's verse. I thought the subject matter of the song was like 15 years too late. I mean, the subject matter was interesting in the mid-90s, even third person storytelling. But by the time this came out, I just felt like, I'm like, man, this has been done 50 million times in rap. this is what you guys are putting out in 2006, 7, whatever year it was. I just thought it was a stale topic. It wasn't even a bone type topic at that stage. It's like, why are you guys putting this out? You could have put out Unstoppable. You could have put out Wildin, but they put out Young Thugs, which also one of the reasons I didn't like it. I never like when like rap songs get stolen. So this was One Love by Houdini.
One love. You're lucky just to have just one love.
Remade with elements of Hey Young World by Slick Rick, which Crazy has a whole song called Hey Young World, which again, it's a Slick Rick remake. I've just always been against that, but I know that that's the right formula to be successful. People like familiarity. I just don't. I'm into the originality. And if you're making a song called The Originators and then you do that, it's like, come on, man. You know what the funniest thing about this is, though, is if this was Ruthless's 2007 attempt at chasing Crossroads with a song with a, quasi-positive message, a Saturday morning TV show, after school show special, that's what they did here. They had all those other tracks to choose from, and they chose this one. And people joke about, if you read the comment section, everyone's like, "Yo, what's up with Bizzy's people portraying what Bizzy's rapping about? This is hilarious. This is a after school special."
Don't stop, yeah, till the casket drops, yeah. Once upon a time.
So Young Thugs was engineered properly. It was properly done for a semi-commercial single. I just think it was being released in the wrong decade, because we've heard these tales a gazillion times over at that point. I think it was a missed opportunity to sell the album with a top-notch single, but there was a lot of people that did enjoy the single at the time. So it's a mixed bag, I think. Remember Yesterday. So the intro to this reminded me of like the stuff Cecil would do in his early days of rapping. Crazy's verse sounds like it was from the time he recorded Let's All Get High with the Brat.
You know we've been choosing, know we've been through, we got nothing to lose. Y'all call my name, I'll be there.
So I don't even know how old this song is. When Wish's verse came in, there should have been like an instrumental change-up or a fill or some kind of thing to just say like, all right, Crazy's verse is over, now Wish's verse begins, because it didn't. It just has this, like, the song drags on, and I think of Pee Wee Herman and Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Jimmy crack corn and I don't care, and he jumps off the railroad, the train.
Jimmy crack corn and I don't care.
But yeah, so the song just feels like it drags on from the get-go. Repetitive beat. What we love about Bone is the unique era. The songs were always building and it went somewhere. So the songs were musical and not just mind-numbing loops, which this one feels very mind-numbing. And you know how earlier I was talking about how my mind blends things together? I couldn't tell you the difference between Everyday Thugs, Remember Yesterday, So Many Places. They all just blend together. In fact, they blend together in my mind with All the Way as well. And If I Fall. And I know If I Fall and All the Way are some people's favorite Bone songs of all time. But just like that tone, and I wouldn't be surprised if the same guy made all 5 songs. It's just, it puts my mind in this 3:30 p.m. sunny, humid, after school feel. They all have the same like note range, and they all kind of just drag on. They're not bad. It's just, they're just so repetitive to me. Like they don't go anywhere. It's one feel for a whole 4 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. It's just one feeling, whereas I don't feel any progression, any building up and building to a crescendo and a climax and falling action. Like none of that happens. They're just like these just songs, and it's just this one single vibe for 3 to 5 minutes. If you like that, that's great. If you're into music theory and all that, not so much. All right. So I just said all that about Remember Yesterday, right? And that brings us to So Many Places, which
I've been so many places, so many unfamiliar faces. Pray every day.
I had referenced. I didn't realize I hadn't already talked about it. So Many Places, song titles like this and Remember Yesterday and Don't Waste My Time. It feels like they're all just recording songs because they had to. Crazy singing isn't even in key with the instrumental. Sometimes they do it and it works. In this case, maybe, I don't know. It's a catchy, crazy hook. Okay, now watch. Now here was a missed opportunity they had. So Many Places hook is catchy. It's a crazy Bone always has the catchy hooks. But instead of him singing it in 3 parts, wouldn't have it made more sense for the other members to sing the accompanying parts? Like one of the guys says all around the world and someone else would say I pray every day, so that it would feel like an actual harmony for Bone Thugs and Harmony where everybody's taking turns and contributing to the sound. Whereas once again, this is just this whole album, T.H.U.G.S. is Crazy Bone featuring Bone Thugs and Harmony. Because I think Crazy does the hooks on all of these, and except maybe Unstoppable. And as I said earlier, by the end of the song, the whole entire album feels like Jimmy Crack Corn and I Don't Care.
Keep from going crazy. Well, you know we still hit, but we still struggling, trying to come up on that almighty dollar. Do the damn thing, and I got to maintain, try not to go insane.
When it's on, though, it sounds good, but it's really formulaic. That ain't the Bone way. But if you don't care about that, this is quite the dandy song. So that completes T.H.U.G.S. I was fairly critical of this because I don't have a fond memory of it. Most of my memories of it are the same way I feel about the Tupac Machiavelli albums, as I said multiple times. I do remember bumping Wildin for like a whole year straight when I got this, and Unstoppable. Maybe a couple others. And as I re-listened to this album to do this review, the entire album was familiar to me. So I've heard all these songs a gazillion times. I think I heard these songs more when they were unreleased versus when they finally came out on T.H.U.G.S, which is strange. But like I enjoy, it's crazy. Watch this. The songs were enjoyable when they were unreleased. But when they became official on T.H.U.G.S, suddenly it was like, nah, I don't like him anymore. So like, I guess a cut song is cool when you just got it as this cut track. Oh, hey, here's some throwaway Bone song, and you're cool with it. But then when it's there officially, it's like, eh. There is a consistency to this album. The consistency that's there is so much so that I can lie to myself and say, oh yeah, the T.H.U.G.S album. But as soon as I make that lie to myself and accept this as an actual album, my mind immediately says, well, okay, what about Behind the Harmony? What about Everyday Thugs, the album? What about The Lost Files? What about the gazillion other ones from this time period? You know, do those count? If you're counting T.H.U.G.S, what about those others? And I'm like, well, I mean, this one is an official release by Ruthless Records. It counts. And it's like, well, Behind the Harmony has a barcode too. And so I don't know. Because this one is official and the others aren't. You see, that's the problem with categorizing this in my head. In fact, it's almost like I was going to say, like, maybe we should just have this like other category. For instance, we consider Bone Thug group albums. We consider solo albums. We even classify the fixed tapes and mixtapes and all that. You know, but then again, your mind's like, so what do we do about Special Delivery Volume 3? What do we do about Unify the prequel, The Untold Story? What do we do with Thuggish 2? What do we do with all? There's so many of these. And if you don't have them, how do you preserve over time the actual Bone collection other than having a gazillion MP3s sitting around? But album-wise, you know, at the time when these things dropped, people were complaining about somebody doing a cash heist, somebody using Bone stuff improperly. But as time went on, here we are 15, 17, 18 years later, as criminal as it might have been if these things were unauthorized, they preserved the history. Like, and I always go back to Hell's Movie. You know, everybody's mad at Hell's Movie. They say it doesn't count. I'm like, dude, whoever did that preserved all those Bizzy tracks in a single collection. If somebody didn't preserve that Hell's Movie as Hell's Movie, all we would have is Heaven's Movie. And those songs would have got scattered and lost over time. Whereas at least now, because that happened, those got preserved. Same with Behind the Harmonies. And we have T.H.U.G.S. and we have the Lost Archives Volume 1. But those were official. But it's like, okay, Lost Archives. Although T.H.U.G.S., see the difference between Lost Archive and T.H.U.G.S. Lost Archive actually had some things that were actually released. Whereas this T.H.U.G.S. was, at the time, all unreleased material. So I don't know, man. I think that's the issue I've always had. I think other Bone fans have it too, is you don't know how this fits in your brain. And you preserve some of the angst at the time when this came out, along with the confusion at the time, because we really didn't know the state of the group. We didn't know if Bone for Life was an EP or an LP. We didn't know about that other disc. We didn't know about Thug Stories, just showed up out of nowhere. And now they're on Strength and Loyalty. Is Bizzy in the group? Is Bizzy not in the group? Because now I see him in the Young Thugs video. I don't know what's going on. So it was a time of confusion, leading right to the real resurrection of Bone with Strength and Loyalty. I just want to say that this album is not as bad as people kind of think of it. It's not great. This is not eternal. Oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you this. Okay, and I want you to do this yourself. When I listened to this to make my notes, I listened to the album front to back. I had a lot of thoughts that went through my mind, just thinking about how formulaic Bonehead became by the time this album dropped. Where did the original styles go? You know, what happened to these guys? And then Blaze through the Bone Cult dropped that Down 71 video. And I listened to it, and hearing Bizzy's verse on it, I was like, bro, how did these guys make Eternal in their teens and 20s and it be so lyrically phenomenal? So light years ahead of anything anybody had ever done at the time. And then fast forward 15 years into the future at the time for this T.H.U.G.S. album, and it's like it was the wrong order. It's like, how are you guys so phenomenally amazing on Eternal? It's so amazing that it defies reality how amazing that album is. And then you listen to them on T.H.U.G.S. and you're like, how? This is not even the same group. How is this even the same people? How did they degrade so much from being so amazing down to like, and you might be thinking, how dare you talk about Bone like that, dog? Listen to T.H.U.G.S. All right. And when you're done, and make sure you listen to the whole thing front to back. Don't skip anything. Just play it. Right. And then just go play Down 71 and see if you're just shocked beyond shocked, loss of word. I dropped like a 15-minute voicemail on the Beyond the Harmony guys about what my thoughts were. And I'm just like, bro, how did all of them? And the other part too, and I hadn't thought about this ever, how did all 5 of them all master the Bone Thugs and Harmony style? And nobody else in the world has been able to even come close to duplicating the East 99 style. Sure, that Graveyard Soldiers did a nice mock, like a nice imitation of it, but there will never be another Bone Thug. It doesn't come close to Eternal. It's satisfying. Like if you just want to hear the Eternal style, it's cute to put on Underground Graveyard Soldiers, and you're like, oh, that's cute, but it ain't Eternal. It ain't the real thing. And how did all 5 of them? All 5 had the East 99 style, and nobody outside of them. Like, how did all 5 of them simultaneously be gifted with that? Because during Eternal, you know, like, say what you want about Wish now. Everybody says, hey, but Wish was fire on Creeping on Eternal, right? So even Wish and Flesh had impeccable styles on Creeping on Eternal. How did all 5 of them master the style, which even 30 years later, people are still trying to master it, and they can't. When they try to do it, everybody comes off like Biggie on Notorious Thugs, and at best, they'll sound like Twista, right? But nobody is Bone. And how all 5 of them were able to do it, you would have thought it would have just been one of the 5, maybe 2 of the 5, but not all 5. All 5 of them figured it out in their teens and killed it in their teens and then couldn't do it in 2007. T.H.U.G.S. leaves us with more questions than answers. You just wonder how they even kept churning out these songs left and right. Mostly, I'm wondering, had Unstoppable been on, I don't know, was it supposed to be Thug World Order? Had that come out on an official release, how we would revere that song more than we do now as just a lost track or now a T.H.U.G.S. track. All in all, though, rating T.H.U.G.S., I'm giving this album an 8. And that's a high rating, and that's more than people probably think about. But when you play it, there's nothing awful on this. Every song is passable. Every song is an 8. It's a consistent 8 with 2 standout tracks, maybe 3 if you think Young Thugs. I don't think Young Thugs is a standout track. I think it's 15 years too late. But Unstoppable and Wildin, those should have been the singles. 5 of these songs are like easy listening that make me fall asleep or feel like it's 3:30 in the afternoon. 4 of the songs sound like they came from the Fat Joe, Ja Rule camps of the time period. It doesn't sound like a Bone Thugs and Harmony album. And I evidence that by hearing this album and then going to listen to Eternal afterward. It's so colossally different to compare the two. It's like not even in the same universe. It's not even the same dimension. It's not even the same group. The difference between this and that, mind blowing. And I recommend you doing it though. If you ever forget how phenomenal Eternal was, listen to T.H.U.G.S., go back and listen to Eternal, and you'll know what I'm saying. And you'll probably appreciate Eternal even more. You'll notice so many things that you just took for granted. And so by me saying that, you're like, well, okay, well, then John, how could you give T.H.U.G.S. an 8? Because an 8 it's a B. This is a B, a low B. It's not even a C. It would be a C if there was bad songs on here. None of the songs are bad. And that's the nice part about the album. In theory, this is like a just push play album, but you would never put on any song individually other than Unstoppable and Wildin. But if you just push play, it's a chilling background. There's nothing on them where you're like, yeah, garbage. It's just meh. But it's better than meh. Meh is like meh. This is like, It's not meh. It's So there's a difference. It's a B minus. It's not even a C. It's slightly above average. Hey, how's this? I would rather have T.H.U.G.S. than Bone for Life. I'd probably want Thug Stories more than T.H.U.G.S. But I don't know. It's a real close tie. There's 3 standout tracks on Thug Stories, like 3 that you couldn't live without, whereas there's 2 you couldn't live without on Thugs. But I think consistently, I don't know. Maybe I'll review Thug Stories next. It's close though. This is better than Bone for Life. Not quite as good as Thug Stories, but almost. It's not even close to Thug World Order though. You could see why these were cuts from that. There's nothing to write home about. This is nothing to be thrilled about. And I think that's what it was. Is this album wasn't thrilling when it dropped. It was just like, okay, thanks. But with all that said, this should have been an annual thing, whether it was Ruthless or Mo Thugs or Harmony House or Flesh and Bone Global. Somebody over the past 15 years should have been dropping a Bone album of unreleased material every single year. Now you might say, well, Johnny boy, that kind of did happen. I mean, you just named a bunch of them. Thuggish 2, Everyday Thugs, The Lost Files, The Lost Archive, Unify, the prequel, The Untold Story, Behind the Harmony, and a bunch more. Kind of like there were 10 years of Tupac releases of albums after he died. But I mean, on an official retail, I do remember my thought at the time was saying, wow, this is a Bone album if it was outside of the unique universe, outside of, if like some East Coast producers at the time period made a Bone album, what would it sound like? And it would be this. That's my review of T.H.U.G.S. I recommend you guys give it a listen if you haven't to in the past decade. I'm not saying you're in for a great experience, but it's worth doing. And then afterwards, pop in Eternal. On behalf of everybody at Beyond the Harmony, I'll check you next time.